Hey guys, how you doing? Josh here from J Media. Today we have two different types of stabilizers set up for us. On the right we have the Opteka SteadyVid Pro, and on the left we have the Lang P-03. This is actually my newest stabilizer, and I have to say I really do enjoy it. But today in this video we're going to be mainly talking about this Opteka SteadyVid Pro. On my recent video on how to balance the Opteka SteadyVid Pro, a lot of you commented below the video and said that you're having a lot of trouble getting the dynamic balance. And this is what we're mainly going to be talking about today in this video. Now, dynamic balance, for those of you who do not know what dynamic balance is, it's basically a test to see how your camera behaves when the stabilizer is in movement. Static balance is a test to see how your camera behaves on the stabilizer while it's standing still. Okay, so now we have the 5D Mark II stabilized on the Opteka SteadyVid Pro with the Rode Stereo Video Mic Pro. As you can see, the static balance of this camera is actually quite nice. You know, it's not flopping forward or backward or left to right. Now let's go ahead and check the dynamic balance. Okay, we have a little bit of wobbling there. Now that's the type of issues that you guys are having with your Opteka SteadyVid Pro. And I'm going to help you out quite a bit because I can tell you what your problem is, guys. Most of you are putting on way too much weight on the bottom, and that's what's causing that wobbling. You're becoming way too bottom heavy, and our goal is to be more top heavy. Now check this out, guys. Look how it wobbles back and forth like that. That's a huge issue, and that all has to do with the counterbalancing weight. Now, as I said before in my last video on the Opteka SteadyVid Pro, it's always helpful to have some sort of tripod or stand to mount your stabilizer, just like this cheap $15 tripod I have set up for me right here. So since we have our static balance all figured out, it's nice and static, let's go ahead and take a look at our counterweight here. Since I said before that most of you are probably ending up putting up too much counterbalancing weight on the bottom, let's go ahead and remove one counterbalancing weight. Okay, we removed the smallest counterbalancing weight, leaving the stack of connected weights still together, okay? So let's see how the camera balances. All right, it's flopping over just a little bit, so let's go ahead and rebalance. I'm gonna go ahead and fast forward to the balancing because I already teach you guys how to balance the Opteka SteadyVid Pro in my last video. So let's go ahead and balance it really quick. Alrighty then, so we have the 5D Mark II balanced on our smaller amount of counterweights here, and static balance, it's pretty good. Now before we check dynamic balance, it's really important that we lock up all our tensioners here. All these silver knobs on the Opteka SteadyVid Pro have to be tightened, because a lot of you who are doing the dynamic balance test, while you're moving the camera at such a fast rate, you're actually shifting the bottom plate of the camera. So it's moving over the gimbal left or right. That's the only problem I see with the Opteka SteadyVid Pro, is that you do need to tighten some of these tensioners. So let's go ahead and tighten up these silver knobs here to restrict the camera from moving on its own. And don't forget your bottom tensioners as well, right here at the bottom of the base plate. Make sure that all of your spacers and washers are there. Now once all the tensioners are tightened up, we might have to do a few minor balances here, or adjustments, to make sure that the camera is perfectly balanced. Okay, don't forget to check your bubble level. Okay, mine looks pretty good. So let's go ahead and check the dynamic balance of the camera. Okay, so I've checked the dynamic balance of the camera. As you can see, I did not tighten up all my tensioners because now my camera is tilting to the left. So let's go ahead and rebalance and tighten up those tensioners again. Now go ahead and take a look at your bottom tensioners. Make sure they are very tight, because the movement of the dynamic balance test is mainly going to shift your camera right to left or left to right. So we want to make sure that these tensioners are pretty tight. Alright, so our tensioners have been tightened up. I've rebalanced it. And there's just a few more things that we need to do in order to check our dynamic balance. So here's a little close-up of the Opteka SteadyVid Pro. Now, the reason for its price, $150, compared to the Steadicam Merlin, is that the gimbal is not as accurate as it can be. Alright, so here we have 4 Phillips head screws securing the gimbal in place. Before we check our dynamic balance, it's really important that we make sure that these screws are extremely tight. Not too tight that we bust the head of the screw, but tight enough so we can't turn it anymore. So make sure that these Phillips head or flathead screws, depending on your model, are tight, making sure that the gimbal has no play to move side to side or up and down. So that's really important before we check our dynamic balance. So once our screws are tight on our gimbal, let's go ahead and take our SteadyVid Pro and check the dynamic balance. Now, some of you are experiencing issues when checking your dynamic balance, mainly because you're moving the camera extremely abruptly. You want to keep it at a smooth pace, up and down, left and right, okay? It sways still just a little bit, okay? But this is the best dynamic balance you can achieve with the SteadyVid Pro. It's good enough to get you the shots that you want, all right? At least it's not moving side to side or, weird movements like that. You want to make sure, oh, there we go. I'm out of balance here. So if you move it extremely abruptly, you are going to throw it off balance no matter what. So you want to keep the movements smooth and subtle. It's very important to remember that, guys. Okay, smooth and subtle, left to right, up and down. This is how you're going to check your dynamic balance on the SteadyVid Pro. Now, a few other tips about the SteadyVid Pro. Some of you are asking me how to pan and tilt. We have a panning knob right here, right where my forefinger is and thumb, and I have the option to pan like that. Alright? Now, some of you are asking me, how do you tilt with this type of tool? Easy. You just go ahead and grab the bottom of the counterweight balancing arm, and you can tilt it down, or you can tilt it up. Just like that. And that's how you're going to get your panning and tilting shots. Now, guys, it's really important that you understand that this is $150. It's a very cheap unit, so your dynamic balance might not be perfect, just like mine is. Compared to this system over here, just like the glide cam models and glide gear and fly cam, you're going to get a lot better dynamic balance with these types of stabilizers right here, okay? This one is extremely cheap, but it still does get you quality shots. But you have to remember that your dynamic balance will never be 100% perfect, all right? Mine is decent enough for me to get pretty good shots, but I'm not wobbling side to side like that, okay? So the number one thing that you need to check for is, are you too bottom heavy? If you are, then that will be the number one cause of your wobbling. Second thing to check, the screws securing the gimbal. Those are very important. If those are loose, your gimbal will have a lot of play and it will cause a lot of different shifts, all right? So your center of gravity is gonna change constantly if your screws are loose. So go ahead and make sure that those are tight. All right, guys, now there's another thing I really want to talk to you guys about the SteadyVid Pro. This is a huge issue with the SteadyVid Pro, hence the price of $150 here. You see this insert right here? This is where your tensioner screws onto, and this is what holds your plate together. Now, watch what happens. I can easily push it out. Now, the problem is that when you tighten up your tensioner tight, this slowly starts to push out. And what happens when this thing pushes out? Your plate will be able to come off by itself. And when that happens, your camera will fall to the floor. So, when you first buy the Opteka SteadyVid Pro, I suggest taking out this insert because it's pretty much useless, okay? Take out that insert and grab your tensioner and a nut, all right? Go ahead and your tensioner screw, I would go ahead and put on 2 washers, just like this, 2 washers for a snug fit. Go ahead, put it on. And on the other side of the plate, I would go ahead and put on this nut and use that to secure my tensioner. I would not use the insert that came with the system because that insert is really cheap and it just pops out on its own. And when that happens, your camera will definitely not have a good time, all right? So I just use a nut and the tensioner will be able to tighten on its own, all right? And it's actually gonna be a lot more secure than it was before, just like that. Let me see if I can get an inside shot for you guys. You see that nut right there? There it is. I just go ahead and screw that on to the other side and I'll be a lot more secure. So I suggest that when you first buy your system, get rid of this insert that goes into your tensioner's mounting hole because you definitely don't want this thing popping out. So just go ahead and buy a nut. I don't know, they're like 10 cents, really, really cheap, and toss this insert out, guys. You really don't need it. All right, guys, so just a little reminder again that your dynamic balance on your Opteka SteadyVid Pro will never be 100% perfect. It'll be good enough for you guys to do some really nice shots, but you will not be able to move the camera abruptly up and down, left or right. If you want to be able to do dynamic tests and dynamic shots like that, I would suggest buying a glide cam or a similar stabilizer to this one. These ones will let you achieve 100% perfect dynamic balance. One, because of its high quality parts. Two, because of its large and thick gimbal. Gimbals are everything, guys, when it comes to these types of stabilizers. It depends all on the quality of the gimbal. If you have good quality gimbal, good quality parts, just like in this one, carbon fiber and aluminum, you will achieve perfect static and dynamic balance a lot quicker and a lot better than the Opteka SteadyVid Pro. But if you are on a tight budget, the Opteka SteadyVid Pro will be perfect for you. Just remember about the nut and the insert and checking the screws on your gimbal. And, of course, the counterbalancing weight. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope this video has helped you out. Please comment, subscribe, and check out my new website. It's joshmorganmedia.com. And have fun shooting. Bye-bye.